So one of the great things about photography, and I think one of the reasons that we all got into it is light, the quality of light. Daguerre had this great quote that I remembered from college days, and he was talking about light and photography, and he said, photography and light, the spontaneous action of light. And I think that's really true in how we all approach this medium. It's why we're in it, because as photographers, we may not be able to draw or paint, but we can take this camera and we can create things based all on the quality of light. So we seek it. It's part of what we do. It's part of our core. It's everything about our medium. But there are times when you're out and you don't have a bright sun, you have low light, and there's ways that we can inflect light into what we do by using artificial light. And artificial light, very simple, things that we can buy on-camera flashes. There's a number of them out there. There's any quality. They can do an amazing array of things for you creatively in the field. When I buy my flashes, one of the things that I'm always looking for in purchasing a flash are a couple of things. The higher end flashes all give us the capabilities of items like through the lens metering. And when I dial onto my camera, and I have a variety of things, TTL, through the lens metering is what that means. The flash goes out, it hits my subject, it comes back and stops, perfect exposure. So in the old days when we used to shoot with flashes, it was a scary thing. Today's world, it's not. You should be able to use any flash and use it creatively and not have to worry about what your exposures are going to be, because you have automatic settings, you have manual settings, you have through the lens metering systems, you have backlight situations. All of these things are all part of what you purchase when you buy a flash. You know, the great things about flashes today, you can move them around, they can be sideways. So it's great that these cameras and flashes give us that capability of being able to move. Now, having a flash directly on top of the camera has its advantages. It allows us to be able to shoot things quickly and get perfect exposures because of the TTL backlighting situations that and the modes on this flash that allows us to get those shots. But it also has some disadvantages. And the disadvantage, I think, is one of the most common things that everybody knows about is red eye. Whenever the flash is directly over the camera like this and the flash goes out, especially in darker situations where you'd be using a flash like this, you know, it exposes the blood flow that's in the back of your retina and makes the red eye. So taking a flash slightly off the top of the camera oftentimes is a way to eliminate that. And so that's the great thing about these flashes, is that we're able to take the flash off the camera and we can use it in any number of ways. One of the things that I always carry in my camera bag to give me that particular function is a cord. And the off-camera cord allows me to attach my flash. It has the same hot shoe mechanisms that you see on the bottom of the flash as it has on the hot shoe in the camera. And it allows me to be able to just slide my flash in here. And in doing this now, to get that light that we get morning in the evening and get a more pleasing light, less two-dimensional, more three-dimensional, is I can now take my flash off camera and have it to the side, point it anywhere I want. It's not just good for portraits, it's not just good for plants, it's good for almost any quality of light where you want to get that early morning, late afternoon light. And it's a great tool to be able to do this. This particular cord that I have is maybe 4 feet of an extension, so it's a really handy thing to be able to do. With autofocus on my camera, auto and the flash, you know, I can move around and still be able to control everything without having to worry about trying to focus. It's all there for you in the camera. Now, if I decide that I want to do something different and I want to be able to have my flash, say, further away, or I want to have complete control of the flash off camera, is these commander units, which are a wireless sensor that goes out. It's not a flash, although it looks like a flash. All it's doing is pumping out an infrared beam that my flash is able to see. Now, a lot of flashes in these top models now also have a commander unit built into it. So when you're buying a flash, and this is something that you're considering doing a lot of field work, you might want to have a flash that has a commander unit in it. So you could have 2 flashes. One serves as both a flash and a commander unit, or you could have it work independently like I'm doing in this case. So this wireless remote is going to trigger this flash. So I can move this thing 25 feet away from my subject. And as long as the infrared beam can be seen by this flash, it's going to fire. And that's a real capability, because it gives me the freedom of being able to move wherever I want, no cords, nothing in the way. I can have an assistant in the crowd targeting somebody in the crowd, hitting the flash on them wirelessly, and I'm able to get my shot. It's a real advantage of being able to use this in the field. The other thing about having one of these wireless remote units is that not only does it have the capability of using one flash to trigger, I can use up to 4 flashes with this. So think about that. You've got a studio in the field that you can use with one wireless remote, controlling the output, the power output, how many flashes are going off, how much power each flash is going off, all with a wireless remote unit and your top-end flashes. So that's one of the great ways to be able to shoot creatively in the field and control the light with artificial lighting. This first portrait, I've got my flash mounted directly on top of the camera. And notice the light on this. It's very direct, it's very flat, it's two-dimensional. It's not bad, you know, it's a perfect exposure, you know, everything is nice about it in many ways. But again, using artificial light, using your flash and being creative, you can change the quality of light by simply taking the flash off the camera, using your wireless or your cord, and moving off to the side. Now let's take another shot. Look at this. Now look at the quality of light in this photo. Look how much different that is. That side light that's coming in, artificial light, it's three-dimensional, it's much more pleasing to the eye. So keep that in mind when you're shooting. If you can get that flash off camera, move it off to the side by using either a cord or a wireless remote, you're going to have a whole new opportunity to be creative with your flash. The pathway to creativity when using artificial light is no different than when you make a lens choice. Different flashes, different ways to use flashes are a creative tool, just like choosing the right lens for the right subject. On-camera flashes, which, you know, that two-dimensional look, one of the ways that we can soften, probably the most popular way that we can soften light, is that these flashes have the ability to point up and give us a bounce light. And they also have the ability of having a diffusion screen which comes over it, which spreads the light out more, softens the light, and most of them have these little tabs that come in that not only does the light go straight up and bounce off of a ceiling, but it also hits this and goes directly out towards your subject and lights the insides of their eyes and their faces. So it's a really valuable way to be able to use your on-camera flash creatively without that direct blast that you get from a flash that's based like this. So it's a really neat way to do it. The other way that you can use these wonderful on-camera flashes to give yourself a different quality of light, which I love using for outdoor portraits, not only having the flash off camera, is a diffusion box. This is a very small diffusion box that fits up into a little bag about the size of a volleyball, and the flash is actually mounted right on the back and points into the softbox, which gives me a very softened quality of light. That's a wonderful way to shoot portraits. And I have it on a stand now so I can show it to you, but this thing can just grab the handle and you can move this thing around anywhere you want to go, side light, top light, bottom light, and give that wonderful quality of light that you get from a diffused light source. Another way that you can use your on-camera flash to get a sense of diffused light are these dome lights. And these are popular now with, especially with like wedding photographers and portrait photographers. They come with a background on them that allows them with this kind of this ribbed inside, so it's one size will fit all. And these just fit directly over your flash and they squeeze right down here. Now you get this light that goes up, bounces, gives you an even distribution of light that has a very nice quality to it. Now, I don't know if you can tell or not, but you can see the difference between these two. One is a more translucent quality, which will give you greater power, more flash for your buck as it goes out. And the other one, which is a little bit more milkier, which gives you a greater sense of diffused light, a nicer quality of light, but it diminishes the power output. So these are just choices that you make depending upon the situation that you're going to be shooting is. I love using these for not only for portraits in the outdoors, but also shooting wildflowers because I don't have to carry anything big around. These things are easy to throw in my camera bag and they work well with my on-camera flash. Other qualities of light that we can use that most of you are familiar with are the diffusion screens. These things are big, they open up any number of sizes from things that are the size of, you know, a paper plate to ones that are as big as your car. And it's great for reflecting light back onto your subject to add fill light. But you know, when you're in a pinch, and I carry this around with me all the time, I have a piece of plastic that actually I've used in the bottom of my tent. It's this milky, creamy plastic that is folded up now, but also can use as a diffusion screen against the sun on top of subject matters like flowers or portraits. In studios, they'll have them framed, stapled into big frames that they'll use to be able to put light through it. And again, it gives you a softened quality of light, very similar to what you get from this, or very similar to what you get from these guys. Any number of ways you can do it. I use a variety of subjects. Piece of foam that comes with my packaging, like the back of a FedEx. You hold this up, that's a way to do it. Old bags that you pick up at stores, any number of types of these devices you can find anywhere in your house usually and take it out. It can be a good quality of diffused light for your subjects, especially with sunlight. But don't forget, you can also blast your light through these qualities these different, plastics and papers and plastic things like this that can come through that can diffuse the light. Now, to use these subjects, one of the things that I have found is if I have my camera and my camera set on a tripod and I want to have my flash off my tripod, sometimes I don't have somebody with me when I'm out in the field, so I need to be able to find a way to attach my light without having to bring stands in. So there's a variety of ways you can do it. These inexpensive little tripod stands, I can mount my flash right on top of this and put this on the ground or set it up on top of a car, wherever I want it to go, and it enables my flash to be able to be triggered wirelessly and have a place to do it. Other places are these wonderful little clamps. And these clamps come in with a hot shoe on the top. So I can put my flash directly onto the hot shoe, take this clamp and stick it almost anywhere. And now my flash is on here. I can freely move around with the camera and take my shots, not having to worry about where it is. And these things are fabulous. You can stick these onto the sides of canoe. They got a pretty good grip, so it's not going to come off. And anywhere you want to go, a railing, the side of a canoe, the side of a kayak, the side of a building, a car door, they're fabulous. So your flash can go in that spot. It's a great way to be able to get your flash in a secured spot, off camera, wirelessly controlled to give you very creative shots.
I think this is going to be a pretty good area here. I got the lens cap on. Great, keep that there. Perfect. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to look at portraiture, and specifically we're going to be looking at portraiture first of all with natural light, and we've got this beautiful sun setting down behind. And then we're going to look at portraiture with some flashlight, fill-in flash. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk about are what I consider the 5 key things for good portraiture. First of all, it's communication. You need to be able to communicate with your model or your subject, let them know what you need and build a good rapport with them so that they feel comfortable when you're photographing them. Second thing is your choice of lens. Your choice of lens is really important for portraiture. Very, very important. Now I'm using an 85mm lens here, which is a perfect focal length on the full frame 35mm format. Gives a really nice perspective. It's a very flattering lens for portraiture. Third thing is aperture. The choice of aperture is imperative. Now, I love to use large aperture lenses for portraiture. In this case, this lens is a 1.2, but any lens from 1.8 or above will be great for portraiture. And I'm going to probably be shooting with apertures from 1.2 to about 2.8 so that I can control the depth of field just to around the model and then keep some of these wooden posts slightly out of focus and the blades of grass slightly out of focus. So that's communication, choice of lens, choice of aperture. The fourth thing that we need is lighting. Now, one of the myths that you hear in photography is how the photographer should have the sun behind him so the light is illuminating the subject. Well, that's complete nonsense, okay? The best lighting is shooting into the light. Now you can see what's happening here on our model Emma. The light is coming from behind and it's illuminating the hair really, really nicely, giving this lovely backlit effect onto the hair. So that's the best way to shoot into the light. Now, the problem when you're shooting into the light is that you're going to have the shadow side that requires filling in with light. And what we're going to do to fill in the light is I've got our assistant Fabian here with a standard Lastalite round disc reflector. And with the silver side of the reflector, I can just gradually bounce a little bit of light, reflecting that light from the sun back in onto the model's face. You've got to be careful how harsh. You don't want it too harsh, but you can see just a subtle amount can work quite nicely. Now, it's good to have an extra pair of hands, and our assistant Fabian's going to be controlling that reflector. So let's look at the things that we need for good portraits. The lighting, which is going to be taken care of by a reflector or fill-in flash. Choice of lens. Now we're going to use the 85mm lens, which is a perfect lens for really nice perspective, really nice portrait shots. the choice of aperture. That controls our depth of field, and by selecting a large aperture lens we can really reduce the depth of field to get a really nice out of focus background. Then we've got communication, to communicate with the model and direct your model well, make your model or your subject feel very comfortable. And then the fifth and final thing is the environment. And you can see here we've chosen a really nice location, so think about the location and what your backdrop is going to be. So we're going to use these wooden posts to make part of our picture, the blades of grass and the backlight sun, and then we've got this lovely bank of grass going off into the distance, which is going to make for a really lovely soft background with that shallow depth of field. So I'm going to start shooting a few pictures. Fabian's going to control the reflector, and then hopefully Emma will give us a few nice poses, and we should get some really nice portraits. And now look at camera this time. That's it, good. Just change the hands position slightly on the face. That's it, that's really nice actually there, that's good. A little bit of a smile again. That's it, good. May even help if you actually go past it that way and just bring it back into about there. That's good. Excellent, that's just nice there. Now I can use these wooden posts in my foreground. Now the light is right behind Emma there, so I'm going to move over this side and just concentrate on that there. That's fantastic. Excellent, that's a nice sexy pose, that's great. Let me just move my position here. Good, lovely. Keep that there. A little bit more of a smile for me. That's it, great. Perfect. Okay, so we can see that the reflector that Fabian's putting in on the shot is working really nicely. We're just getting that little bit of fill light, which is filling in the shadow side of my picture, and I'm shooting into the sun, which is the best way to do it. Really nice effect with the light around the hair. Just going to darken my exposure a fraction. Try a couple of other angles. Okay, that's it, good. Okay, the sun's right in my shot there. That's going to give a lot of flare on this one, but it actually works to good effect, so I'm going to go with that again. That's nice. Excellent. Just do a couple of different poses for me, Emma. Just change your body position slightly. That's nice, good. Keep that there. Okay, and move again for me. Let's just change it again. That's good. I like that with the hands to the face is good. Yes, lovely. Keep that there for me. Okay, let's move into position. Good, keep that there. Okay, excellent. Right, I'm just going to go in slightly closer on you now. So I'm just going to work a couple of slightly closer crops on Emma. I'm going to try and shoot across through this grass here and use some of this grass out of focus. That's lovely. Excellent. Nice catch light in the eye from the reflector. Good shallow depth of field. Beautiful light down the back of the hair from shooting into the sun like that, which is working really well. So I'm just going to modify my position slightly, pick up some more of this grass out of focus, and then Emma's looking at me through that grass, which is lovely. Just going to, oh, that's fantastic, really like that. Let's do that again. Excellent. Now this is where the choice of lens and choice of aperture is essential. I've got quite a nice tight crop now, but by using the shallow depth of field and controlling my depth of field, I'm keeping these bits of grass slightly out of focus in my foreground to add a bit of depth to the shot. Can you come towards me, Emma, now? Right up close this way, and is there somewhere to sit along in there? Even if you're half on this hill part here. Sit like facing that way and then look back round towards me. I'll give you the shout when. Just turn this way first so I can check my focus. Okay, great. Okay, look away and then look round towards me. That's it, great. That was nice when the hair blew in the wind, so we'll do that a couple of times. Okay, yeah, great. Excellent. And look away again. And around towards me. That's it, lovely, good. Excellent. Okay, this time I want you to look down the beach there, that's it. Perfect. That's quite nice. It's a little bit distracting with those posts. There's almost too many. If I go in a little bit closer on a tighter crop on you. Yeah, that's lovely. Right, let's go with that. Excellent. Give you a little bit of a smile again in there. That's it, good. Excellent. Hang on a sec, that's great. Let me just check that. Okay, the flare was working really quite nicely then, but now that the sun has spun around a little bit more directly behind Emma, the flare's actually a bit overpowering, so just got to be careful of that. And I'm going to just switch my camera position, camera angle, to make it a little bit better. Okay, it should be all right now, that's clear. Good, that's it, fix that position there. Excellent, let me just get these. Right, Fab, you had a really nice bit of light then, just on Emma, it was just right. Let me just see where it is, that's good. Excellent. Right, keeping your head in that position, just bring your eyes towards me. Okay, you are going to have to turn your head a bit then, sorry, yeah, that's it, good. And give me that full smile again, that's it, good. That's worked really nicely and the flare has added beautifully to the shot. So, really good results there using natural light and a reflector. Nothing more to it than that. Well, okay, there is a little bit more to it than that. Obviously, you've got to get good composition, choice of lens, aperture, all those things that we spoke about before. But what I mean is we don't have any fancy studio lights. We don't have any fancy big strobe flashlights in this shot. We've just got a simple silver round Lastilite reflector, a beautiful girl, a good photographer, and a nice camera. But you can do this sort of shot on any entry-level digital SLR as long as you've got the right focal length lens and you try and get a lens with a large aperture. Now the sun's setting, and what I'm going to do now is probably set up a demonstration using some fill-in flash techniques and show you how fill-in flash can also work to good effect. Okay, now we've got the flash gone in position, and I'm just going to use the flash to pop a little bit of flashlight into the shadow side. So whereas before we were using the reflector, we don't have any reflectors now, I'm just going to rely on the flash to fill in the shadow side of my shot. Now you can do this with ETTL mode on the flash, which is electronic through the lens metering, or you can put it on program or automatic modes. But all the way through our series of programs, I've been trying to teach you how to use that camera in full manual mode. And that's exactly what I'm doing right now. I've still got the camera in full manual. I'm shooting at the moment with a shutter speed of 1/60th of a second, an aperture of 3.5 at 100 ISO. And I've got my flash set to manual mode. And by that, it means I can control the flash output power by simply adjusting the power dial here, whether I increase the power of the flash or I decrease the power of the flash. And that lets me make the choice on how much flash goes into the shot. And I think that that can be just a good way, if not better way, of working when you're doing a shot like this. So I'm going to shoot a couple of shots with flash and a couple of shots without and show you the differences. A little bit of a smile again for me. That's it, great. Just lean your head back upright a little bit. That's it with the smile. That's great. Keep that there. Excellent. Beautiful. So we've just got a little bit of flash in that shot. I'm going to turn it off now so I can do the same shot again to show you. No flash in that one. And we should clearly see, yes, we can see the difference in lighting between the two shots. Now in that instance, the flash looked a little bit bright to me in that shot, so I'm actually just going to select it. I'm going to turn it down a little bit more. And then I'm going to do the same shot again. That's good. So that's a really nicely backlit shot. The sunlight coming through the hair, little bit of flash filling in this shadow side. I'm just going to get that flare coming back into the shot because it was quite nice there. Let me just get my focus on Emma again. That's really nice where that sun just pokes over the top of Emma's head and flares around. Okay, now one other technique that you can use with flash is sometimes the coloration of the flashlight is different to the coloration of the light that we've got. And right now we've got this very warm yellow sunlight coming towards us, but we've got a colder daylight balance flash firing into our model, and that light will be a little bit too blue. So the other technique that you can apply is to get a small piece of yellow filter, a little bit of yellow gel filter, just a subtle amount of yellow gel filter, and put that over the flash. Or you can use one of your camera filters to create a yellower flashlight to balance with the light that you've got in your scene. As a matter of fact, Fab, could you do me a favor please and grab me the slight warm-up filter out of the filter pack so I can hold it in front of my flash. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be really lazy and I'm going to get you to hold it in front of the flash for me so I can concentrate on the focus. There should be an 81B warm-up filter in there. Great, I'm just going to turn the power of the flash back up a fraction. Okay, right, so wherever I move with the flash, just try and capture it. Good. Yeah, you see that's just warmed that up like nicely. We're just going to get that. Right, Emma, you just give me some nice poses there. That's great. Keep that there. Good. Look slightly over that direction this time. That's beautiful. Well, great job there, Emma. Fantastic job. Well done. Shall I help you up? There we go. Right, so we did the techniques with flash, without flash, with reflector, with natural light. So I've shown you a few techniques there for portraiture and the 5 key things that you need for good portraiture, which was communication with your subject or your model, using the right lens, the right focal length for portraiture, using the correct aperture, and then lighting. In this case we use flash or we use natural light, and then your environment. Make sure you've got a good background that is going to work really well for your shot. Those are the 5 key things. You're going to take a look at some of these results that we've got, because we're going to show you those. Really pleased with what I've seen on the screen. Think it's worked out really well. Okay, we're down in the southwest of England, at the very southwest tip in Cornwall, at Land's End, and we've got these fantastic cliffs coming down into the sea. And not only that, they're a beautiful rock formation on those cliffs, and you can also see there's some rocks that almost look like they're about to tumble off the edge of the cliff into the sea. So I want to try and capture that. And we've got these lovely big waves crashing into the bottom of the cliffs. But more importantly, we've got this foreground detail down here of these beautiful sea pinks, these lovely cliff flowers. And I want to get those in the foreground of my shot. Now, part of the problem with that is that we're shooting into the light, so they're going to be a little bit on the dark side down here in the shadow. So I'm just going to pop a little bit of flash in using high sync speed mode on the 580EX here, and that'll allow me to pop a little bit of flash in and still retain a high shutter speed to freeze the wave motion. Now, quite often on these landscape shots we're going for longer shutter speeds to blur the movement of the ocean, but on this one I want to capture those waves as they crash against the rock, so I'm going to be using quite fast shutter speeds for this shot. The other thing that I want to do is use a very shallow depth of field, so I'm going to open up my lens to probably f1.8 or f2 and capture a shallow depth of field so that that is sharp and this is out of focus for a soft foreground. So it's quite a simple setup. I don't even need a tripod. I can do this handheld, and I'm going to do it without flash first and then pop a little bit of flash in. So I'm going to see what I can come up with. Look at that, here comes a lovely wave. Just going to wait for that to hit those rocks. Beautiful, look at that crash over the top of there. That's exactly the detail that we want to capture there, is those waves smashing into the rocks, and then this soft foreground with these little sea pinks out of focus, which is going to work to great effect with that shallow depth of field. Now, what I'm going to do now is just pop a little bit of flash in, just to bring out a little bit more detail and colour in these sea pinks in the foreground. So I'm just going to turn my flash in manual mode, going to turn the power down. I'm going to test it at just under 1/4 power and see what it gives. Let's just have a look. Yeah, see, that's actually a little bit too bright, but the effect is working. So I'm going to drop that down to 1/16 power, because you want to make this look subtle. You want to use the flash to fill in the light on this side. I'm shooting with a shutter speed of 1/1600 by using flash in the high sync mode. But I don't want that flash to overpower the shot. I want the flash to just give me a little bit of light in there and keep it subtle. So just testing my flash, seeing the effect, and there, that looks like it's worked really well. So I've manually dropped my flash power down to about 1/16, and that's just enough light that it actually adds, but it doesn't look artificial. And that's what you've got to be careful of with flash, is that you don't make the shot look artificial. You want to keep it as natural looking as possible. So now that I've worked that out, I'm just going to wait for some more waves to roll in. They're coming in sets, and on the next set we'll get some waves crashing against those rocks, and I want to get that shot where that combination of rocks crashing and these beautiful sea pinks out of focus in the foreground with that shallow depth of field. Now there's a big set of waves coming in now, and that's what I've been waiting for. Look at that, it's fantastic. Here we go. Those waves are rolling up that cliff edge there, and hopefully we've just captured that just right. These waves coming in sets, and just trying to get the best motion on those waves as they hit the cliffs. I'm just going to review. Yeah, my light balance is fantastic there. We've got this beautiful backlit light, this backlit scene with the edges of the cliff and the rock face catching the light, and then these lovely sea pinks just being illuminated a little bit by my flash. And what we'll do is show you the difference of what the shot is like with too much flash, without flash, and then just the right amount of flash.
You know, having a flash in your camera bag can be one of the most valuable parts of your tool bag, so to speak, for photography. We're out at the Hohokam petroglyphs in Saguaro National Park right now, and one of the things that we're trying to do is to use the flash to accent one of the petroglyphs without having all of the natural light dominate the scene. So what we're doing is we're using a remote unit, which is triggering a flash wireless about 10 feet away from me, aimed at a sight angle very similar to the angle that the sun is on the other side of us. Think about this. If the camera flash is on your camera and it's straight ahead and it blasts something, it's two-dimensional. So we're using our flash very similar to the way we use the sun. We have it off to the side to give us a little bit of texture, add that third dimension to our shot. And so the advantage of this is that I'm actually pumping more light on the petroglyph than I'm allowing the ambient light in the scene to exist. So your eye is going to go right to the petroglyph first, because I'm actually adding more light to that than I am to the whole scene. And it's one of the most valuable things that you can do to accentuate a subject, isolate it, and make a photograph that's different than most of the other photographs that you've seen. All right, fabulous. So what I'm doing is I'm actually using the flash as both a dominant light source, and then by changing my remote setting here, I can dial that down to where it'll become a fill flash source. And so I'm allowing my ambient light to go dark. I'm using the flash to be dominant, or by just simply changing it, I can dial it down so it becomes less flash and it's just fill. You won't even notice that the flash is there. So I'm playing it both ways, using the flash as a dominant light source, or using it as a light source that's giving me some fill light, but you won't even know the flash was gone off. It's one of the beautiful things about flash photography. All right, we found ourselves a nice little peak up here on one of the mountains in Saguaro National Monument. And the problem is it's really dark and there's no lights out here. It's a stone structure. So we're gonna let the darkness go down a little bit just so there's enough ambient light still to define the building. But I've taken a flash and I've got a remote flash set up, wireless. This is not a flash unit here, but a wireless control master. And it's gonna trigger the flash that I have inside the building. So it's gonna illuminate the inside and give us that very, very warm light in this stone building on top of this hill. And by the capabilities of using our flash in places like this that are remote, wireless, it really makes a wonderful photograph in doing that. So that's kind of our plan tonight. Let's see what happens. Sweet, sweet. One of the simplest tricks that you can use to have a $50,000 studio in your basement is to go out and buy an $8 flashlight and take good pictures. If you've got a tripod, a camera, and a subject, you can make great pictures. And what we call this is light painting. And it's very simple to do. With my camera settings, I basically just go to 30 seconds. Now that may vary depending upon your subject and where you're shooting, but I like to go 30 seconds because it gives me 30 seconds of playing with my light to get enough exposure to get my subject. Usually my aperture is around 16, 18, 22, so I have enough time to get around to create that 30 seconds, and I'm not using a very bright flashlight, so that enables that 30 seconds to work. If I have a brighter light, I probably have to go to 20 seconds. Okay, does that make sense? Then on the shutter, I will use a cable release so I don't touch the camera, prohibiting any camera movement. If I don't have a cable release, then using your self-timer, clicking it, giving it 10 seconds for the camera to settle. Then it settles. When you hear a click, you can start your light painting. And it's very simple. As soon as I hear the shutter click, all I'm going to do is turn my light on, and I'm going to find the points that I want to highlight in my subject, and I'm just going to paint with light. The room will go dark when I do this. For the demonstration purposes now, we're not doing that. And I'm just going to move around, and I'm going to paint with light. It's that simple. So a couple of the things that we need to pay attention about when we're light painting is, one, never allow your light source, your flashlight, to be inside the frame of the subject that you're shooting. Because if you do, you're going to see the light, then you're going to get these squiggly lights that are going to appear inside of your shot. So take a look at your shot, make sure you've got kind of an imaginary line around it so you know that your flashlight will not creep into that as you're light painting around. The other, when the room goes dark, if you're moving, and oftentimes I have to do this, I have to come around and reach over here, or I have to walk around the camera, get to the other side. As long as I'm moving, I'm not going to register on my shot. So don't worry about that. As long as you keep moving, it's pitch dark in here. When we start the shot, all you're going to see is the light that's coming from this. So just be aware to keep the light out, keep yourself moving, and you'll be in good shape. And the key to this light painting is to accent certain areas of your shots. Think of it as a sunset shot. If the light is most pleasing when the sun is coming up or when the sun is going down, think about that using your light source and light painting at the same thing. It's dramatic angles that are going to add texture. If I just evenly light my subject everywhere I go, well, it's going to be a two-dimensional shot. But if I come at an angle and I give highlights in certain areas, I'm getting a three-dimensional shot, which is going to add a tremendous amount of interest to the photograph from a contrast perspective, from a lighting perspective, just like you get in early morning light and in late afternoon light. So be aware of where your light source is coming from. Oftentimes, if you think about flash on camera is the same thing. So if I'm shooting this light in the same spot that the lens direction is going, two-dimensional light. So again, think of that sunrise, sunset. It's that side light that's going to give us our best light. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go dark, and we're going to go black, because a 30-second exposure, if there's any ambient light coming in, streaming in from the kitchen window or coming in from the basement light, it's going to affect your 30-second exposure and cast light on your subject. So we basically want a dark room in order to effectively light paint. So we're going to go dark, we're going to paint, we're going to create a photograph. My light is on, ready to go. I'm hitting the shutter. Now we're just going to paint. This particular time, I'm going to concentrate on the light source being near the bottom of the frame. So my light will be heavy on the bottom. So it'll have a very different look. The highlight's coming from the bottom of the shot, rather than giving it even lighting like you would say, at noon. So I'm going to make sure that I do paint a little bit of the textures and what have you on the tops as well. Bring that light all the way over to here. Again, notice the angle that I'm at as I'm actually creating shadows everywhere I go. Okay, let's come over and take a peek at that. That's pretty well lit. We'll go ahead and we'll try another one now. This time I'm going to come at a little different angle. I'm going to come mostly from the top and the back side. So the subject will be more backlit this time than it's going to be front lit. So again, we're just going to kind of keep painting. I'm keeping that light source out of my frame so I don't get too close. The closer I get, the brighter the light will be. Then moving back, if I wanted to diminish the light, I would just move my flashlight back, just like you would any light source. And so this shot's going to have a very, very dramatic backlight. We'll put a little bit of splash on the front, give us that third dimension look. But primarily, it's all backlight. All right, that's the end of that exposure. Let's take a peek. Definitely worked. All right, let's do one more, and let's do a side light from the opposite side this time. So let's go ahead and click our shutter. And this time, we're just going to paint our light almost predominantly all on this other side. Again, just gently moving it around, making sure I'm creating highlights in certain areas. In other words, keeping my light source in one spot for a longer period of time. Here I'm using the back of the heels because they're kind of the back of the shot. I'm going to get a little bit of the laces. Concentrate on the side light. Got to get a little bit of light on this side so it doesn't go completely black. But primarily it's a backlight shot. So we're going to make sure that I stay on the backlight side. There's the end of that exposure. Let's kill our light, take a look. Bingo, we're good to go. So you can see the value of just having an $8 flashlight in your basement to shoot a simple subject and create wonderful photographs. We've shown how the use of the light painting at various angles through our 3 different shots have been able to give us 3 dramatically different photographs. Wonderful that we can do that such an easy way and a method of using light painting. We can always take that to another level, a different twist if you want to, while you have your same setup. One of the things that I like to do is I just take my lens shade off for this next couple of shots, and I can take my light. We're going to light paint the same way we did before, but to give a glowing effect, I can actually come up to my lens, fog that lens up, the lights go out, I start to paint. Wherever those highlights are, it's going to glow as long as the lens stays fogged. Now remember, it goes dark. So if the fog goes pretty quickly, I just come back over and do it again, paint more, fog again, come back over again, and I get a wonderful shot where the highlights are going to glow, and keeping the light values in other areas softer, you're going to be surprised at the magic that you can create. Other twists include I can take the camera and change the camera angle. I always like having a variety of compositions with my shot. Bring the camera lens down, shine the angles, all backlight, very hard side light, but at a different angle, offering a different composition will give you a lot more visual magic to play with. Other than taking great pictures, one of the things that's always on a photographer's mind is how to save money. And I'm going to show you a way today that you can take product shots in your house, something that you want to show friends, something you want to sell on eBay. I'm going to show you a really inexpensive way to get those shots. So what I've got is my basement, dark room, a place that can get dark, and I've got, a variety of inexpensive lights, some poster boards, my product, all of these things I'm going to shoot. So this is how we're going to do it. I've got a bowl that I turned, and I like to share this with friends and family, so I like to have an easy way to take pictures of it. So one of the things that I do is I have this poster board. These are actually old posters of mine that I have that I use as a backdrop, and I set my product right down on top of it, and I use these white posters as kind of my seamless drop. Now, the reason I'm using posters is very simple. If I use something like wrapping paper, newspaper, something that's bright but thin, it wrinkles. And if it wrinkles, when my light hits it, it's going to cast a shadow. Something that I have to take out later, and it's a blemish I don't want to work with. So something thicker like this is going to work really well. Now, as I've taped this down, it's taped onto this table. It's a 3-foot by 4-foot table in this room. And as I tape my poster down, I'm taping it in a ways that kind of creates a layer system. If I taped one of my posters on top of one this way, I'm creating a seam. So what I do is I tape the next one behind it so the light flows right over it and you can't see the shadowed area of where the posters have been joined, okay? So for example, with this one, I'm simply gonna slide this poster behind this one to give my kind of seamless backdrop. And I'm using an old box here that's kind of filled with some household junk in here to kind of give me this backdrop. Now you can have, if you have a table or a freezer or a washer dryer up against the wall, you can do it the exact same way. So that's kind of my setup for my poster boards. And ultimately, everything kind of wants to be nice and even. I'm keeping my subject as close as I can to my camera. So this fall off here is pretty severe, and I want that, and I'll show you later, I want this to go darker and to keep this light, so my lights will be pointing in a certain direction. Now, with the backdrop, you also want to make sure that the table source that you've got is probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 times the size of your product. Because if my backdrop is too wide, it doesn't cause a problem. If it's too thin, then my product creeps into the edges. So you've got to make sure that you're able to keep your product within the edges of this, or you lose that clean background and you start seeing, you know, the plug into the washer and the dryer, and you don't want to see that. So make sure that whatever poster boards that you're getting are wider than your subject, so you get a nice clean backdrop. So then I move into my lights. So what kind of lights do I use? Well, for 25 bucks at Home Depot, I picked up 3 clamp lights, 60-watt bulbs that go with them, and the light source that I'm using are these 60-watt bulbs, that are tungsten balanced. And I like these tungsten balanced bulbs more than the ones that get the energy saving bowls that are the fluorescent curls. I don't particularly care for that quality of light. These are really easy to use, they're inexpensive. I like 60 watt, but you could put a 40 watt, 60 watt one, however you want to do it, to alternate the light source. But 60 watt bulbs, tungsten setting, work out really well. And then these clamp lights, I can use anything I need. These are handy because you can attach them to almost anything in your basement. You know, the freezer next to you, a broom handle, some clothes that are hanging off the clothesline, whatever. You can all be here and you can all get those shots. Now, the key to this is to be able to have something that is close enough to it. Now, when I say you can go in your basement and use your freezer room, whatever, that's good. Just make sure that you have a room that can go completely dark, because what we're going to do is all the lights will go off. I need the room to be black, so only the light sources that I've had, my clamp lights, are going to be the light sources that are exposing my bowl. And so you've got to have enough room to be able to move around. So squeezing into a closet isn't necessarily going to work. You need a room a little bit bigger, something where you can close the door, throw a blanket over a light source to block that light source, and then just use the light that's coming from the clamp lights that you put in here to get your shot, okay? The other things I have is I always use a tripod. And I'm using a tripod simply because these exposures, I'm going for maximum depth of field, and in order to get maximum depth of field, I need to be on the sticks. And my exposures are probably going to be anywhere between 15 seconds and 30 seconds. And so that lets me go all the way to f22, get as much depth of field as I possibly can. Long exposures don't matter. The room is black, and my light source is controlling that. Now, if you decide you don't want to go with clamp lights, another thing that I use an $8 flashlight all the time to get shots of my bowls. It's a great way to do it. Pitch black, turn a light on, black room, and you just light paint. It's a great way to get shots. So that's kind of the setup. Now let's get to some shooting. All right, in the final stages now of our setup of our bowl here, and you know, one of the things that you'll notice here is I'm using a white poster board. I'm using a white poster board for a couple of reasons. One, I'm using tungsten bulbs, so my white balance is set on tungsten, and so that way my white balance is accurate. I like using white because it bounces the light up underneath my bowl, especially with an object like this. If it was something straight up and down, like a statue, then going side light wouldn't matter. But I'm trying to bounce light back up into the bottom of my bowl. So it's working out for me really well. And then you also notice that I've left a lot of distance between my bowl and the back curve of my backdrop, because that way all of my lights are positioned so they're pointing right on the bowl. And then I'm going to take this third light right here because my lights are slightly behind my subject. And I want that because I also want some backlight. That gives us the third dimension, which is really important for backlighting. It's like hair lighting in portraits. Same concept here. But what that means is that I'm getting a little bit of a shadow right in front of the camera. So I've got my third light here, which I'll turn on, and I'll actually put that right up above the camera. But notice I'm not pointing it at the camera like this. I'm going to point it almost straight down because it's still giving me plenty of light. If I point it like this, that curved background gets light on it. I don't want that to happen. I want it to be dark because I get a good separation between my foreground, the bowl, in my background. It really lets the subject pop. So when I take this, and notice that I'm on a tripod, I'm using a cable release, this exposure is not too bad. I'm shooting at the lowest ISO I possibly can, 200 on this camera right now, and I'm gonna shoot at the greatest depth of field I have, so everything on my bowl that can be in focus will be in focus, and so my exposure is about 2 seconds. And so I will take this light, and I bring this light up right to the point where I don't see any more shadows, but again, notice, I'm pointing it straight down, so my light does not hit that backdrop. It's going to go dark because all of the light punch is up front. It falls off very quickly. I've already pre-focused because everything is staying still. I take my shot. No shadows, no highlights, nice backdrop, makes a nice photo. So how cool is this, that with just these few items, I have a studio-like portable lighting system that I can take into the field anywhere I go. The Phong domes, which are fabulous for photographing just about anything, anywhere, including wildflowers as well as people, or this portable light box, which simply slides off a small bracket that I use with my in-camera, on-camera flash, and slides right back on. This easily, the flash then bends into it, and all of that fits in this very thin little bag, so I can take it anywhere I want and get wonderful light on anything I want to shoot. I tend to shoot these with a remote unit, so I have a wireless capability. It allows me to fire the strobe without having to have cords flipping around or getting caught in trees or branches or people tripping over them, and that gets a very, very nice quality of light with that, as well as the Phong domes. Now, the two different parts of the Phong domes, one you can see is a little bit milkier than the other, which is a little bit more translucent. This gives me maybe an extra stop of light coming through than this one, which is a little bit cloudier, but I get a softer quality of light with this than I do with this. The nice thing too about this is that they seem kind of big and bulky, but they're not. They actually collapse and can fit right in the side pocket of your camera bag. Don't worry about it not fitting on your flash. One model fits all. These small little plastic ribs that are in here allow it to fit right on top of your flash effortlessly and will stay on while you're shooting. Some of the other devices that I like to carry, again, very small. You can see this clamp. So if I need to clamp to a tree, if I need to clamp to the side of a canoe, if I need to clamp to a pole, it has a hot shoe on it where I can put my flash and use my flash, which can then attach to this bracket, and I can have a softbox anywhere I want to go. One of the values of these types of domes is that the dome versus the softbox light is that this distributes light evenly throughout a room. Another way to use a device like this is to go into a very controlled space where I don't have room to move back, or there's walls that are colored and I can't bounce my light. So a box like this I can set up on a small stand. I can actually pop this off. I can set this on the ground. I can set this almost anywhere I want to go, and with the remote outfit, it allows me to shoot anywhere I want to go in tight spaces and get studio lit perfection photographically without having to carry tons and tons of gear. What you see is what you get. All right, Lisa, I'm just going to get a little fine focus there. Good, that looks good. All right, we'll get that. We've got a situation today where we've got strong side light coming from one side and it's very dark in this hallway on the other. So how do we balance that? How do we find ways to do that? Reflector cards will work, but we need a little bit more punch. So there's these great devices that we can use. This is a portable softbox that I carry almost everywhere with me that I can set up everywhere using a remote trigger, so I don't have any cords going back and forth. And I can dial the power up and dial the power down, not on the flash, but right here on the remote unit. And I can get pictures of Lisa, and we can work through a shot and get a nice balance between the side light and the shadow, so the light doesn't look strobed, it looks balanced and pleasing. So let's take a couple of shots. Okay, Lisa, that's good. Right there, hold that. Excellent. Now that was a shot we had taken without the strobe, and it has a very harsh side light. Now we're going to take another shot where I'm going to have the power has been dialed down one stop, because I don't like my flash to appear as if the subject has been strobed. I like a more natural look. So we're going to take another shot now with one stop down. Good, that's perfect, Lisa, right there. Excellent. I'll take a peek. That looks very good. Let me look at my last shot. Oh, deep shadows. Now by opening it up, I can see Lisa quite a bit better. Now, I'm going to open this up just a little bit more, and I can come into my remote unit, and I'm going to crank it up now to a third of a stop. So I'm only going down a third of a stop now rather than a full stop, so the strobe will be even diminished more. And we'll see how that looks. Perfect, Lisa, good, right there. Excellent. Very pleasing. Now there's really no noticeable flash. Lisa's perfectly balanced. The side light is not overwhelming the shot, but she now has texture and detail on her face. Looks very good. Softbox is torn down. I've got everything in my little duffel bag. We bagged the light, professional studio light in our small little situation. As easy as this is, I can just take all my gear. I can load it in here, my portable little $1 million studio, and by golly, I'm good to head out to the next assignment.
Beautiful town of St Ives in the southwest tip of Cornwall, and we've got this lovely scene behind us of the village of St Ives and the little fishing harbour there behind us, and we're going to get a twilight shot of this town as the light subdues. It's a really simple technique. We just got to wait for twilight, let all the little lights in the village come on and get this lovely twilight blue sky. Just need a tripod and a camera, as simple as that. We're going to go and get a good shot. To capture twilight scenes at the optimum time, it's imperative that you don't shoot the scene too early or too late. Generally speaking, you need to wait until most of the light has disappeared from the sky, but the sky is not yet black. The best technique is to establish the correct exposure and keep shooting every 3 or 4 minutes until it has become too dark to record a twilight blue. Use increasingly longer shutter speeds to compensate for the falling light, but don't worry too much if some of the streetlights in the scene become overexposed. Just make sure that any illuminated windows are kept at a reasonable exposure level. You can check your image by zooming in on the preview to ascertain the optimum exposure, although it may be worth reducing the brightness of the preview screen when working in low light. Okay, we've just got the shot. It's been fantastic. We just waited for that twilight period, and what I did just to add a little bit of light in this foreground area on these houses was just popped a little burst of flash in during my 30-second exposure. So a very simple technique. Just did it handheld and pushed the test button to fire the flash manually and pointed it down at those houses in my foreground, and that filled in some light into the shadows that were getting a little bit dark down there. But my overall balance of exposure is absolutely cracking. We've got all that lovely orange glow there in the lights of St Ives, and the twilight sky setting in there perfectly. Really pleased with that as a finished shot.
So the process of taking night pictures is not difficult. It's just, you bring a flashlight so you can see, and you go about your normal business. There's a few tricks to shooting star pictures though, and that's kind of what we're doing here in Saguaro National Monument tonight. And the key to it is our eyes are not nearly as sensitive as our sensor is. And there's a lot of colors that exist in the sky that we can't see personally, but our sensor sensitivity, especially at the higher ISOs, can. So I basically come in, and I got this nice cactus behind us. I've got a little bit of ambient light left, and it'll still get darker, which will be nice. But I'm going for both scenarios with the stars. If I shoot stars at 30 seconds, and I shoot them I'm shooting right now, I think, at ISO 2000, because there's not a whole lot of stars here. Unfortunately, tonight we've got moon that's kind of bleeding out some of the light. I'm shooting at ISO 2000, 30-second exposure, which is going to give me just star pictures. You're going to see stars that don't move. Anything after 30 seconds, and we start getting the streaks. And it's kind of funny, I have found over time that if you shoot stars between 30 seconds and a minute, or 30 seconds and 2 minutes, there's enough movement to where then the stars look out of focus. So you kind of make a choice. I'm going to shoot this shot to show that there's stars in the sky, as stars, single dots, or I'm going to put it on bulb, and I'm going to let those stars streak for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and get patterns as they move across the sky. So that's one of the ways that we can get really nice night shots out here. And if you want to even make things a little fancier, you can take your light, flashlight, you can paint your cactus, in this case, a log cabin if you were up north per se, and just have fun with it and use lighting, extended lighting, auxiliary lighting, a flashlight, a floodlight, whatever you want, or just simply shoot star pictures, but make sure your foreground subject has enough light behind it, not against a dark background, so it stands out. Just shooting stars for star's sakes, for the most part, is pretty boring unless you're using a high-powered telescope and shooting a galaxy. Out here, we want something in the foreground, something to give us reference. Again, something that makes it go from a two-dimensional shot to a three-dimensional shot. Then we have a lot of fun. So let's start by taking a 30-second shot and just get the dots in there behind the saguaro. That's the great thing about night photography now. We just sit and wait. So we came into Tucson and we found the Tucson Inn, which had this great marquee with these kind of fan fingers that are a little bit too dark right now for us to photograph, but we wanted to try to get some urban shots at night in Tucson. And these old classic landmark Americana inns are something that we're trying to seek. Now we're here a little bit later than I like to be because I like more ambient light behind the scene. But one of the things I'm doing is I'm using my flash to help accentuate some of those fans that are holding up the colored lights behind us. And so it's one of these things that you can do in the woods, in the wilderness, in the desert, shooting the cactus earlier last night, and then back in town tonight to shoot urban. We can kind of combining both by taking long exposures, using alternative light sources like flashes and flashlights, and just having fun. Okay, I'm gonna walk over and grab one more shot here. We're gonna use the strobe to light up those pillars that are holding up the lights, just to add a little bit of light on them to kick it in. So I'll walk over and get a shot with the strobe. All right, let's check it out and see what we got here. I still feel like I'm here a little too late. No, it looks pretty good. I wish I had more ambient light behind it to give me a separation, two-dimensional shot to a three-dimensional shot. But it looks pretty cool. It's one of the perils of shooting at night, but one of the joys of shooting at night. There's a lot of things that you can do at night. It's a lot of fun. Give it a try.
Mastering photography takes persistence and practice. Stay with it. Look forward to more inspiring lessons in future editions of the Ultimate Photo Guide digital photography series.
So there's any number of reasons why one would want to have a studio and studio lighting. I think the main reason is that you're in a controlled environment. And when you're using studio lighting, you're using a controlled environment. And I think on the assignments that I have, it's rare that I have to have studio lights when I go out. But when I do, the benefit of having studio type lighting is, more than anything else, it's the power output. And I'm using power sources, and I'm using light boxes, and I'm using stands, and I'm using assistants, and I'm having to have a lot more production involved in taking this kind of a lighting setup in the field or even in the studio than I do with the portable lights that are the on-camera flash type things that we have. Some of the advantages of having this kind of light, and not only is the power output, I can use a large softbox like the one you see behind me, and it can light an entire car. And I can dial up the power to the point where I'm getting great depth of field because I can control the power based on the watt size of whatever power source that I'm using. So that's a real big advantage, as well as controlling the light. The size of that softbox, from a portrait standpoint, gives me such a wonderful quality of light. The closer I use it, move it in, the softer the quality of light is on my subject. But then there's times when I need a less direct type of light, and that's where I might move into an umbrella. And now the strobe bounces off the umbrella, which You can see some umbrellas will have a white background, or they can strip that off, and there's a silver background which punches the light even more, gives you greater output, allows the strobes to give you more punch for your buck, and can distribute the light evenly over a great area. So you've got your local hockey team and they need to get a portrait done. You take out 2 or 3 of these umbrellas with your high-powered strobes, and you can light an entire hockey rink with those strobes. That's the value of having this kind of a light source here. And the soft boxes come in any normal sizes. You can use a strip light to light a background or the side of somebody. The big boxes, which can be a portrait, an entire from foot to toe all the way to the head type of a portrait, or it can light things, like I said earlier, you know, the size of a car. So let's take a peek inside one of these nifty little portable light boxes, which offers us such great value in light. They tear down very quickly. You can see the baffle inside here, which, you know, what's so nice is that it's just a thin little sheet of plastic that reflects the light back in, but it rolls up really nicely and fits into this tube for protection. The same thing is true with the outside lining. And then we pop around back and we can pop that off and it rolls up. And then these tubes, which are very lightweight, and 4 of them, which go to each corner, you know, they simply pop out of the grid and we roll them up. The bag rolls up. It makes it very easy to slide in. So it's very lightweight, easy to carry, can take these things anywhere, and boom, you're off and running. For the studio light setup, for my power source here, I usually carry 2 of these 1,000-watt power packs, and this enables me to put 4 heads and use 4 heads, and I can divide it up any way I want. You can see, you know, it's got an A-B switch here, so I can have either all of channel A or channel B, which is nice because just like your on-camera flash, if you're using several flashes, you can control output on each one. Also, it allows me to shoot different watt seconds, so I can have all of channel B at 500 split, or I can have, you know, all channel A at 250 or 125th watt second, so I can control my light output. Now, with these big power packs, it's a lot of juice coming out of these things. So one of the other things that I can do is, if it's still too much juice, even over here, I have the capability of going from full power, 1/3 power, 2/3, or 3/3 power. So there's a lot of ways that I can vary how I do things. Also, my modeling lamps. My modeling lamps are controlled here. And so I have all those kinds of variations that are here. So a lot of ways, this is working the exact same way as the flashes on your cameras now work. In fact, your flashes are being modeled after the studio production, as well as the wireless capabilities that I can have this controlled on my camera, and I can trigger my flashes without having cords that are being triggered through the receiver here. And don't be fooled by studio lights thinking that they're all set up and they're all perfect and it's always the way you're going to shoot. It's not the way it works. Studio photographers have to be incredibly creative with the kind of light source that they use, just like photographers who work in the field have to be creative in how they use their light as well. So you'll find them putting up shims in order to block the light. I tend to carry around big sheets of silk that I will use stands and clip to kind of block light in some areas, allow more light to pass through. So getting good light is always kind of a game that we play when we're using artificial light. Oftentimes you'll find that you'll spend 8 hours of setup to get 1/30th of a second in a shot, and then you're all done.